Hello my Mercurial mercenaries, welcome to part 2 of my top 20 definitive list of Beatles songs. I've given you some time to let me know what your top 20s are, and we're going to talk about that. If you haven't already watched part 1, which is me talking about my top 20, the definitive top 20, then obviously go and watch that video now. I look like a sex doll in that still, but that won't be a theme that follows through that video. It's about Beatles songs. So from here, spoilers, warning, watch part 1. This is part 2, spoilers. Let me just put on the screen now what my top 20 was, alright? Let's get a few generic comments out of the way. When I put this list together, and this is a time waster as well, alright? This is just if you've got nothing better to do on a Sunday afternoon, right? I put this list together and it was difficult, and I've already spoken a little bit about this in the first video, but let's just go over it again. There's over 200 Beatles songs, and I'm a massive Beatles fan, have been since my early teens, when I first stumbled upon a copied tape off a friend of Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, and I remember listening to it and it sounded quaint and nostalgic before I even had a cause for nostalgia. Of course, when you get to my age now, you realise that Sgt. Pepper, in a way, was purposefully quaint even back then, with the song that Paul wrote when he was 16. When I get older, losing my hair, many years from now. And the title track, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, sort of harking back to the idea of kind of an old sort of Fate band, old brass band. So narrowing that list of 200 songs down to a 20, and then being strict on having an order to the 20 rather than just, oh, it depends what sort of mood I'm in. Because let's face it, although I removed that from my rule set, you weren't allowed to do that. You had to tell me a list in order. Let's face it, it is true that when you talk about favourite songs by any of your favourite bands, it does depend what day it is. It certainly does. And through the years, and I mentioned this in the comments section perhaps, through the years, certainly there was a time when Tomorrow Never Knows was my favourite Beatles song. There was a time when I Am the Walrus was my favourite Beatles song. So putting the songs into order was really difficult. And like I've already told you, I got it down to 50 songs. And then I had to discard 30 of those 50. And I was pitting songs against each other. I was thinking, what are similar songs? I can't have all the favourite songs that I want. I've got to pick 20. So I was thinking, what songs are a little bit similar? And someone said, why didn't you have For No One in your chart? Well, because I did want to have it there. But then it was like, well, For No One is a little bit similar to She's Leaving Home. So I put them against each other. And I re-listened to them and I thought, well, I've got to have She's Leaving Home. And it went a lot like that. There was like, when it comes to acoustic songs, with someone singing earnestly with his guitar. And you've got Julia and Blackbird and Yesterday. And there's quite a few like that. And I thought, I can only really have one of them. So I went for Yesterday. And it was very much like that. And I love a lot of the early kind of rock and roll Beatles songs, but you could fill a chart of 20 with just those. So I went with She Loves You, and it got to the point, and it's a little bit flippant, just deciding that which song should be number 1. And all I did was I just listened to the songs through. Let's just say this, when I came up with the idea for doing the Beatles top 20, it was a given for me, it went without saying, that While My Guitar Gently Weeps was number 1. That was put in the number 1 position. I was going to work around that. And then I re-listened to While My Guitar Gently Weeps, and weirdly, on the re-listen, it just wasn't quite there. And this happened with a lot of the Beatles songs, where I thought I had this song in my head, and then when I re-listened to it, just for the purposes of my personal chart, they just didn't quite sound like they did in my head. And this is the main thing I want to talk about now before I delve into your charts is I felt extremely guilty over three songs. Now, let me put it this way. They're three Paul McCartney songs, and they're three of the biggest songs of all time, and all three didn't go in my chart, right? Now, the one I felt most guilty about leaving out is the song that has come at the top of the nation's favourite so many times. When ITV, channels like that, do the top 20, top 50 greatest British songs, the song I'm talking about, All Bohemian Rhapsody, always come number one. The song I'm talking about is Hey Jude. It is considered by the nation, by the general public, as being the greatest Beatles song. We can argue that here, but I'm telling you it is. And when Paul McCartney is dragged out into the public arena to do a massive event like the Olympics, or if he's headlining Glastonbury or whatever, what song do you think is the song that's used? What song do you think is the climax, the encore, the biggest deal? It's Hey Jude. Because Hey Jude is considered to be the greatest Beatles song by the general public. And it has got the greatest sing-along ending. So I looked at my chart and I thought, I haven't included Hey Jude. I'm going to get in the shit for this. And do you know what? And we'll have a look through the chart now as we go through it, because that's what we're here for now, my mercenaries. But as your charts were rolling in, do you know what I noticed? And this shocked me. Because not only did I think we were going to have an argument about it, but I was shocked that none of you guys, unless you prove me wrong when I look through in a minute, no one included Hey Jude, the nation's favourite. What the hell? I re-listened to Hey Jude to do my chart, and I just couldn't include it. It wasn't quite as good in actuality as it is in my head, but it's still a great song. The na 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 ending wasn't quite as big as it is in all the live renditions I've heard since, all in my head. It's still a great song. Still a great song. But I was worried about that one a little bit. I was worried about the comeback. Second thing, Let It Be. Another Paul McCartney song. Not in my chart. Let It Be should be there, shouldn't it? What a fantastic song. It's a song that makes you want to cry. It's a beautiful, beautiful song. I re-listened to it for my chart and I just couldn't include it. Likewise, The Long and Winding Road. For a while I thought, I love the Long and Winding Road. And contrary to sort of modern re-evaluated revisionism and let it be naked, Paul McCartney's forever criticism of Phil Spector's production on top, I like The Long and Winding Road as it was on the original version of Let It Be, with the orchestration and the choirs, all the stuff that Paul doesn't like, and he's the songwriter, so he's allowed not to like it. And really, we should respect the fact that he doesn't like it, and we should respect the more quieter version, just him and the piano, whatever, drums. But I like the one with the choir. But I re-listened to it and I just couldn't include it. So I went to you, to the public, with a top 20 Beatles songs without Hey Jude, Let It Be, or The Long and Winding Road. And on the whole, I was very surprised because you guys didn't include Hey Jude, Let It Be, or The Long and Winding Road. Some of you included The Long and Winding Road. And before I go to your charts, let me just think about something else. The majority of the magazines, the Rolling Stone, Q, Select, NME, whatever, when they do a top Beatles songs, they tend to put A Day in the Life at the top. And I get why, because A Day in the Life is a fantastic song. So a little bit of me felt guilty because I put A Day in the Life at number 11. And really, it's a kind of number 1 song, isn't it? I'm not sure whether... I mean, look at the songs that I've put better than A Day in the Life. You know, I've said Drive My Car and Penny Lane are better than A Day in the Life. But I think I said it in my original video. When I analysed A Day in the Life, and I had John Lennon reading newspaper articles and Paul McCartney woke up, got out of bed, dragged a comb across my head, I just thought, no. No. For me, something like Eleanor Rigby, when I listen to it today, to pit songs against each other, Eleanor Rigby hits me harder. So that's where I stand. So now I want to go to you guys. I want to look at your top 20s and I want to talk about them. Benjamin is making a case here for Tomorrow Never Knows being the best Beatles song. Now, like I said before, Tomorrow Never Knows is such an amazing song. It's credited to John Lennon. It's got some fantastic drum work from Ringo Starr, some of the best he did. I like the themes. It's from some old Book of the Dead type thing. I can't remember when they were all into these mystical stuff, and I can't quite remember what it was from. And it's got kind of backwards tape loops and things like that going on in it. And John Lennon, the interesting thing there really is John Lennon started to become credited as the experimenter in the Beatles. And for those of you who know your kind of Beatles history, the interesting thing is that it was really Paul McCartney who was really into the experiments with tape loops and backwards tape loops. So it's interesting that kind of revisionist history says that it's a John Lennon thing. But certainly I can appreciate Tomorrow Never Knows as a fantastic song. And Benjamin puts A Day in the Life at number 2. I've kind of given my explanation there for why I put it at like number 11. I think you can see that I didn't allow us to have this conversation about On a Different Day, but On a Different Day, A Day in the Life could be number 1 in my chart as well. He's given some love to Something there, and also what else have we got here? Yeah, Revolution, the single, the sort of heavier version of it. That's a song I left out. Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds is an interesting one because it got to the point when I was thinking about the Beatles and a top 20 where I probably could have put Sgt. Pepper. Not sure about Within You, Without You, but I could pretty much have put Sgt. Pepper into that top 20, the whole album, and perhaps Rubber Soul or Revolver as well. I left Lucy in the Sky of Diamonds out, but I love that song. So tricky, but then you're presented with 200 songs. You've got to leave something out. You've got to leave something out. Dear Prudence I toyed with until I re-listened to it. And again, it's a song that it's probably better in my head than it is on the record. But Paul's drumming in that song, fantastic. Come Together was always going to be in my chart, until I listened to it again. And for some reason, there was a little noise on the somewhere on that drum beat. There was a weird like noise, as if someone's tapping their foot or kicking something. And I've never really heard that noise before. And that noise just, I was like, ugh, like the squeaky pedal on Since I've Been Loving You by Led Zeppelin. Once you hear it, you can't unhear it. And once I heard that tapping of the foot on Come Together, if you want to hear a great version of Come Together, listen to the Aerosmith cover. Brilliant. I've got a feeling. I do like Paul's rock voice. And he does it a few times on the albums, but especially towards the end on Abbey Road. Don't Let Me Down. Don't Let Me Down. I had that one pitched against We Can Work It Out. Holy shit. I had We Can Work It Out pitched against Don't Let Me Down. I decided that I couldn't have both songs. I know, it's arbitrary. We Can Work It Out won. Fool on the Hill, I was going to include, because it's another song that I find superb and makes me want to cry. The Fool on the Hill. Something about the chords, the structure of the song is fantastic. The fool on the hill sees the sun going down, and the eyes in his head see the world spinning round, flat earth. But I re-listened to it, and it's so tricky. It's so tricky. I'm fixing a hole where the rain gets in and stops my mind from wandering. Next, Fabio. I'm taking it goes this way round. So Fabio basically, I think, has recreated my my top 20, and he's then gone into it and made a couple of changes. So let's just see what the couple of changes are. So Fabio has included Let It Be, Twist and Shout. That's interesting, right? Twist and Shout. What a fantastic, fantastic song. There's something about the way that John Lennon's voice is completely broken on it. It's like the Beatles' Territorial Pissings. And yeah, it's a cover, so I didn't include it, because I didn't include any covers. But I don't think I included any covers. No, I didn't include any covers. But I can understand the argument for having Twist and Shout in a top 20. And I've already discussed Let It Be. Fantastic song. Absolutely fantastic song. I mentioned with a little help from my friends in my original video. I mentioned the covers of it. And I mean, off the top of my head, I was pretty sure that Wet 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 did a version, probably for Comic Relief. Would I have to look into that? And I know Joe Cocker did the version that we're all pretty familiar with. And a lot of people, I think the general consensus might be that Joe Cocker's version is better than the original. I don't agree. There's something about the version on Sgt. Pepper that is just mwah. And then Podrick Floyd and I got into a little bit of an argument because I think he suggested that I'd said that Harrison was an oddball. George Harrison was an oddball. And he points out that I did actually say that phrase. What I'm trying to get across here is I didn't, in this little thread, you can read through this yourself if you like. What I'm saying here is that, yeah, I mean, oddballs certainly, I didn't mean oddball. I meant the Beatles broke up, all right? And they were all quite bitter. Ringo went about and did his own thing. I think he remained friends with them all. Did his own thing. And what you've got to remember is, for a short while after the Beatles, Ringo's albums, Ringo was the most successful solo star. It didn't last long, but he was the most successful Beatle, solo-wise. John went his way, hating Paul McCartney. Paul McCartney went his way, hating John Lennon. They both wrote songs about each other. How Do You Sleep? How do you sleep at night? I love that song, off Imagine, by John Lennon. But it's upsetting in a way, because it's really slagging Paul McCartney off. And what must have hurt Paul even more was that George Harrison played on the bloody thing. So you got John Lennon and George Harrison kind of ganging up, slagging Paul off in song, in high sellings, in slagging Paul off on John Lennon's biggest selling solo album. I don't know that for a fact, that it was the biggest selling, but I would assume Imagine was. I don't know. Paul was no angel. He was doing the same thing back to John. So you had the Beatles all being a little bit antagonistic. And at the time, you had interviews with George Harrison where, being a bit derogatory really about his experience in the Beatles, saying, well, you know, I'm a songwriter. I'm a great songwriter. And I was in this band where they weren't letting me have a voice, weren't letting me put my songs onto the albums. And this is the point that Podrick's trying to get across here. I suppose you could be a George Harrison fan. You could believe that he was the greatest Beatle. And there's an argument for that. And like I say in this thread somewhere here, there are times when I thought it myself. If you look at While My Guitar Gently Weeps, Taxman, Something, Here Comes the Sun. Fantastic songwriter. My point kind of is that the Beatles were lightning in a bottle. And would the Beatles have worked with any element removed? We don't really know, do we? Would the Beatles have been the Beatles without Ringo? People say they would. They said Ringo was along for the ride. Would the Beatles have been the same without George Harrison? Would they have been the same without Lennon and McCartney? You've got perhaps the greatest songwriting partnership or songwriting team ever. I usually say it's arguably, you know, you could Jagger, Richards, but is it arguable that Lennon and McCartney are the greatest songwriting team ever? I'd say it's not arguable. They just are. So you've got the greatest songwriting team of all time in a band, releasing albums, and then after the fact, through all the acrimony and you're being interviewed on 70s late night telly, and you're saying, "Oh, I don't really know. Like, they didn't let me put my own songs on my own albums. John and Paul always having their own songs and not my songs." I've gone, Brummy then. What happened there? All I'm just trying to say in this little thread is by the time they got to Abbey Road, George had 2 songs on Abbey Road. One song considered to be perhaps the greatest Beatles song ever. The White Album, he had a fair few, including While My Guitar Gently Weeps, and he opened Revolver. So, and I love George Harrison. I do. I loved George's songs, and I do think that you couldn't remove anybody from the Beatles, including Ringo. But I suppose I could have just done with a bit more positivity about the fact he was in the Beatles. I mean, when he goes on to sell albums after the Beatles, people need a reason to buy your music. People need a reason to buy my music. But I wasn't in the Beatles. Blasty says, I'm always surprised that For No One never gets any love on these lists. Where do you put it? You've got to pick 20 songs, and I chose She's Leaving Home over it. Other days, I listened to that song, and honestly, there was a time I remember only a couple of years ago where I was listening to Revolver, and I thought, that might be the greatest song for No One. And it does, it makes me cry. Here's a chart. Rick Wagner. So, Hard Day's Night, great song. I think I fought A Hard Day's Night against another song. You had like the likes of A Hard Day's Night, 8 Days a Week. I had to pick, I think I probably pitted it against Help. And I went with Help. A Revolution, Norwegian Wood. Norwegian Wood is just such a great song. And there seems to be a general acknowledgement for all your charts about that. Lucy in the Sky of Diamonds. Again, it could have easily been. I love that song. I could have put all of Sgt. Pepper in there. Back in the USSR. I love that song. A little bit too Beach Boys pastiche for me. And again, it's got Paul doing the drums. And I'd rather pick a song that Ringo was doing the drums. But Day in the Life, Help, Ticket to Ride, yeah. Rain, I mentioned Rain, about how the fact that Rain could easily have been on my chart. It's not one of my favourite songs, so I couldn't put it in there. But in terms of showcasing what the Beatles could do, how Ringo could drum, how Paul could play the bass, how they could be innovative, how Rain, with no Rain, you'd have had no Stone Roses. Angie Bird Can Sing. Tomorrow Never Knows, Nowhere Man. Nowhere Man, I think I pitted Nowhere Man against Norwegian Wood. Norwegian Wood won. Happiness is a Warm Gun. I like bits and pieces of it. Across the Universe, we can go back to our first conversation at the beginning of this video, when I felt guilty about Hey Jude, Let It Be, and The Long and Winding Road. I did have in my top 20 for a little while Across the Universe, because it's such a beautiful song. But I took it out. I took it out. She came in through the bathroom window. That's part of the Abbey Road medley, isn't it? That side B of Abbey Road, holy shit, that's a decent side of music. Christ. Now, Nick, are you talking about my face? So I have got a... People keep telling me constantly that I've got a lovely face. Or are they telling me that I'm... Or are they telling me I'm an ugly bastard? You look like that bloke from Harry Potter. Someone else said today... I think to be nasty, I'm not sure. You look like the bloke from the Partridge Family. I don't know what the Partridge Family is. To me, the Partridge Family would be Alan Partridge and his son Fernando. Asterisk. Bottom of the page. I also have a daughter. PZP Evie. Evie. Evil people. PZP Evie. Now, that's interesting. Number 20 puts Real Love. I love Real Love. It's real love, it's real, yes, it's real love. I had to consider whether I was going to put Free as a Bird in my top 20, because that moment where it was like the Beatles had made a comeback in the 90s for the anthology, it was a big deal. And they put that song out, which was an old John Lennon demo tape that they dug up. And then George, Paul and John went into the studio with the ELO bloke or whatever it was. I don't remember now. To create like the final Beatles song, final Beatles single, until they did Real Love after it. But Free as a Bird came out, and you know, fully credited as a Beatles song because it had all 4 Beatles on it, even though one of them was dead. The video was great, total nostalgia. And I remember I really liked the song. I didn't include it in the top 20 because it... Which original era Beatles song was I going to leave out of my top 20 to put Free as a Bird in? That was the problem. That was the problem. Quite a big problem. And when you got the likes of Blue Jay Way and Bulldog, I did consider little bits and pieces like that, but I couldn't get them into my top 20. I couldn't get them in there. That's interesting. You got Savoy Truffle. I had Savoy Truffle in my top 20 until the very, very end, and it was quite high. And I liked it being there because I like the song, I like the groove. I pit Savoy Truffle against Glass Onion in my little battles, and Savoy Truffle won. So Savoy Truffle ended up in my top 20 for a little while. And I took it out in the end because... Right. When you're trying to come up with a top 20, most important thing is, rather than trying to be clever, and I'm not saying that this person, PZP Evie, is trying to be clever, I'm saying about me. It's so tempting to try and put like deep tracks in there, deep cuts, songs that people are going to go, what? Which song's that? Just to be clever, kind of thing. And Savoy Truffle, it's a big song, I suppose, but your average person on the street is never going to have heard of it. And I wanted to put it in there as like, Mercurial number 6 chose Savoy Truffle, but at the end of the day, you've got to think, do I really want to listen to it? Do I really want to listen to it? And my answer was no. So I left it out. And you're going with Tomorrow Never Knows. Fantastic song. Can't argue with that. Eric T. Paperback Writer. Now I think I left Paperback Writer out because I put another one in. I think I pit Paperback Writer against a series of songs, and I think it eventually lost a Ticket to Ride. But there's certainly an argument. I like Paperback Writer because it's like an onion skin of a song. There's layers about it, isn't there? This is written during a time where Paul McCartney was battling with Brian Wilson of the Beach Boys. Brian had listened to, I think, Rubber Soul, and then he went on to create Pet Sounds, and then Paul listened to Pet Sounds and decreed that God Only Knows was the greatest song of all time, which I'm inclined to kind of go with him on, to be fair. And I think he came out with Revolver. But around this time, Paperback Writer, you can kind of hear lots of Beach Boys influences in there. And I like the fact that it's layered in that it's about a bloke who wants to be a paperback writer who's writing a book about someone who wants to be a paperback. I'd need to go back and listen to the lyrics again. If you go back and listen to the song Paperback Writer, but think of the film Inception, it might start to make a bit more sense. Lucy in the Sky of Diamonds, can't argue with that. She Said, there's been quite a lot of love for She Said. Yesterday's got to be there, hasn't it? In My Life. Now, there's another one. If you read other people's, and I'm talking about the media now, magazines and that, if you read their Beatles charts, quite often, In My Life's going to be at the top. It'll either be A Day in the Life or In My Life. That's at #1 spot. In My Life was talked about as a turning point for the Beatles, where they became totally personal, rather than She Loves You kind of thing. And it became more like, this is like a diary set to music. And I do like that song. I do. But it was never in my top 20. Another vote for Rain. Oh, okay. Right. So, I didn't see this, and maybe it's in the edit, not sure. But Eric T is the first person to give any love to Hey Jude. While My Guitar Gently Weeps, Tomorrow Never Knows, Happiness is a Warm Gun, Strawberry Fields Forever, I'm the Walrus, Dear Prudence, A Day in the Life. Can you guess which Beatle is my favourite? Says Eric T. Well, Eric, I can indeed guess which Beatle is your favourite. You are giving a lot of love to Mr. John Lennon in your top 6. There have been times, and I think I've said it before in this comment section, and I might say, maybe I say it here. Let me just check. No. When I was growing up, I think John Lennon was my favourite Beatle. I considered him more experimental, and I considered him more ruthless, angry, with more to say. And it's easy to dismiss Paul McCartney, if you choose to do so, as being more interested in happiness and story songs. And then people will throw Rocky Raccoon and Maxwell's Silver Hammer at you. What I've found over the years, when you do listen to songs like The Long and Winding Road and Let It Be and Hey Jude, and then you delve a bit deeper into She's Leaving Home and Eleanor Rigby, is that Paul's got heart. Paul's got melody. John didn't necessarily have melody. John had lyrics, things to say. Paul had melody, and sometimes he had things to say. So I think I went from finding John to be my favourite Beatle to perhaps perhaps I can just say it out loud now that perhaps Paul's my favourite Beatle. There were times when George was my favourite Beatle, especially back when I was watching the anthology series, which I had on like 8 VHS tapes. I mean, it's sanitised, but if anyone hasn't watched it, I don't know if it's available on DVD or whatever, but if you haven't watched it, watch it. It's sanitised, but those people out there, and I've touched upon it in the last video, the people out there who say the Beatles are overrated, holy shit. The Beatles changed... I was going to say the Beatles changed music. The Beatles changed the world. A Day in the Life at #1. I probably will do a top 20 King Gizzard songs. Here we go. Right, so what we got here? Let's have a look. Here we go. Max Roskilly goes for number 20. Tomorrow Never Knows, a really wild roller coaster rather than a song. Yeah, it's like a musical collage, but a better one than Revolution 9. Yesterday, the amazing orchestration showed that the Beatles could expand further as songwriters. It showed that a Beatle could, and it showed George Martin's ingenuity. And I think, yes, John and George learned a lot from Paul's experimentation with Yesterday. I think that's a fair point. Yellow Submarine was going to be in my chart at the same time as While My Guitar Gently Weeps was definitely going to be number 1. Yellow Submarine was definitely going to be in the chart. And I still think I might have done the Beatles a disservice by not putting Yellow Submarine in there. It's an important song. It's so different to everything else they ever did that it sounds like it could have been another band. And yet, it's sort of the perfect nursery rhyme. And I love the film. I only realised the other day. I mean, I've always known that. I don't know if you guys know this. Hopefully, everyone knows this. But in Yellow Submarine, the Beatles don't. They aren't in it. I mean, at the very end, they're in it, but they're not in it throughout the film. The voices aren't the Beatles. Other actors caricatured the Beatles, and in fact, some people think of the Beatles as having the voices that they do from Yellow Submarine. But I think it was there's a guy who played the voice. I think it was Paul. I only found out the other day. I don't know why. I don't know how I found it out. Just read it somewhere. Even though I've read everything there is to read, it was Twiggy from the Royal Family, and Eddie Yates, and Onslow from Keeping Up Appearances, Evil White Clown Punk. Onslow, Evil White Clown Punk. Onslow from Keeping Up Appearances was Paul McCartney in Yellow Submarine, I think. Dig a Pony. I like aspects of Let It Be for the fact that you had 4 guys who were at the very top of their profession trying to be a band again and sort of trying to play live again. I like that. I couldn't include it in the chart though. Not quite good enough for my chart. Dear Prudence, great song. I Want You, She's So Heavy, that was going to be in my chart. Kind of bringing on the era of sludge metal, heavy metal. It was going to be in my chart. But it got to the point where what song was I going to take out of my chart to put I Want You, She's So Heavy in? Blackbird. Blackbird could easily have been in my chart any day of the week. However, I went for Yesterday. I'm the Walrus. She's Leaving Home. Lush and fancy orchestration mixed with real and meaningful story. I agree. Taxman. Fantastic song. And I Love Her. Also subtle, so beautiful. Here, There and Everywhere. Here, There and Everywhere might be technically the most perfect Beatles song. It's so clever. Starting the verses, if I remember rightly, the first verse is like here, da 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 da. Then the second verse, there, da 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 da, and everywhere, da da da. It's just a perfect vision of the song, a perfect vision of a song executed perfectly. And it was going to be in my chart, and I had to leave it out because there's only 20 places. Within You, Without You, I like it sometimes, I don't like it other times. I thought it sounded amazing on the remastered, remixed reissue of Sgt. Pepper last year or year before, whenever it was. She Said. I considered Get Back. I considered Get Back for a little while because it's, like you said earlier about another song, it's probably the best latter-day example of the Beatles playing together as a band, especially on that Abbey Road rooftop session. Something. I'm Only Sleeping. Right, now, when I was reading through your guys' lists of the songs, and the songs that I've left out, I had this issue. I'm Only Sleeping was going to be in, and I ended up pitting I'm Only Sleeping against I'm So Tired, John's sleepy songs. I'm so tired, my mind is on the blink, I'm so tired, I'll just have another drink. I'm Only Sleeping won, but eventually, to get down to 20 songs, I left I'm Only Sleeping out. And In the Cold Light of Day, when I wake up early in the morning, I lift my head and I'm still yawning when I'm in the middle of a dream. Stay in bed, float upstream. Backing vocals, float upstream. Please don't wake me, no, don't shake me. But what gets me about it is the ooh, Ooh, so please don't wake me. Ooh, ooh, ooh. I'm only sleeping. Ah. All the ooh, ooh, and the ah. Please don't spoil my day. I'm miles away, and after all, I'm only sleeping. I think I might have made a mistake. I shouldn't ever. I swore that I wouldn't back down, and I would stick up for every entry in my top 20 and just be gung ho about it, completely gung ho, like I have been pretty much so far. But I think there's a case that I could have put "I'm Only Sleeping" in there. What song would I take out to put "I'm Only Sleeping" in? I'm only sleeping. Boom, 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 boom. The world going by my window. Da 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 da. Running everywhere at such speed. Till they find that there's no need, Please don't spoil my day. I'm miles away, and after all, I'm only sleeping. What song do I leave out? This is the problem I had. I'm looking at my list right now. What song am I leaving out to put "I'm Sleeping" in? I'm only sleeping. I'm not taking Eleanor Rigby out, or Sergeant Pepper, or While My Guitar, or She Loves You. Drive My Car? There was an argument for that before, but... Baby, you can drive my car, bum, 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 bum. Yes, I'm gonna be... It's all personal, isn't it? To me, personally, I love Driving My Car. I'm not taking that out. Taxman can't come out. Penny Lane can't come out. Wasn't always my favourite. Once upon a time, I didn't rate Penny Lane at all. I was totally a Strawberry Fields Forever man. There was a time when I would put Strawberry Fields Forever at number 1. I think in the cold light of day, I might take out Helter Skelter or I Am the Walrus and put I'm Only Sleeping in. However, it's hard. It's hard. It's hard. And Max goes with Strawberry Fields Forever. And why not? Dan Marr, 007, tries to be funny. Tries to be funny. I said, one of the rules was, don't try and be funny. Tusk Music. And he has another post above somewhere where he says that the Beatles mean a lot to him. And he grew up with them. And he walked the streets of Liverpool trying to get a feel for what it must have been like in the kind of late 50s, early 60s to what existed in that city to create Paul, John, George, Ringo, Stuart Sutcliffe, Pete Best, whatever, but the 4. So this list is coming from a position of someone who has love for the band. And in at 20, he puts Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. Again, tricky one. I love that song, and it does feel weird that I put a chart together but didn't include Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. But, hey, Tusk Music has some love for Drive My Car, which others have been lacking. Helter Skelter. No one else really put that in their charts, but Tusk puts that in his chart. Paperback Writer, Paperback Writer was such an innovative song. In many ways, probably more innovative than something like I Am the Walrus. Taxman, not a problem. Tomorrow Never Knows, not a problem. A Day in the Life. Tusk also puts A Day in the Life a bit lower in his chart. Ticket to Ride. We can work it. In fact, we've got some. Tusk Music and I have disagreed on everything in our short time together. But look at this. Eleanor Rigby. It's got Eleanor Rigby in his chart. In My Life, I can understand why that's there. People love that song. All You Need Is Love. I toyed with All You Need Is Love. I honestly thought that All You Need Is Love was going to be in my chart. Until I had to take another song out to put it in. Hey Bulldog, there's been a lot of love for Hey Bulldog. That's what I'm seeing here. Much more love for Hey Bulldog than Hey Jude. Help! Tusk Music goes with Help. Rain, Something. I've put my case forward for The Fool on the Hill. I agree that I could have put The Fool on the Hill in. I'm not a fan of Lady Madonna. Lady Madonna, children at your feet, wondering how you manage to make ends meet. Who pays the money when the pays the rent? When you find that money was heaven sent. See how they run, Lady Madonna. I like that song actually. It's good. The long and winding road that leads to your door. Interesting Tusk music when it comes to picking the sort of the big Paul McCartney song. The big one from Hey Jude, Let It Be, or The Long and Winding Road. You've gone for The Long and Winding Road. When I grew up, it was hard to admit that you liked The Long and Winding Road because people saw it as this sort of saccharine sweet. What do you got to remember? I think times have changed a little bit now, but when I was growing up, and I'm talking like sort of teenager and especially in my 20s, Paul McCartney was kind of frowned upon. And this is a hard thing to talk about now because it sounds like I'm making it up, but saccharine sweet, always smiling, too happy, wrote the frog chorus. Boom, 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 ah, boom, 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 ah, boom, 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 boom. We all stand together. People will mention the frog chorus to take the piss out of Paul McCartney's solo career. They'll say, oh yeah, John Lennon wrote Cold Turkey and Imagine and Jealous Guy. And Paul McCartney wrote the frog chorus, We All Stand Together. Paul McCartney got straight back out there after the Beatles and created Wings. I went on the road in a little crappy little tour bus and played sweaty little gigs again. I quite admire Paul McCartney. I used to join in with the hate for Mull of Kintyre, which is why I think that when I was growing up in my 20s that you weren't allowed to say you liked The Long and Winding Road. So people went, oh, you're one of those people who likes Mull of Kintyre and The Long and Winding Road. I liked the frog chorus. If you watch that whole cartoon, Rupert the Bear cartoon, it's fantastic. I liked Paul McCartney's contributions to Michael Jackson's songs. I have liked a lot of what Paul McCartney's done since the Beatles. I kind of went off track there a little bit. I think it's because Paul lived and John Lennon was horribly murdered. John became a kind of messiah and Paul McCartney just became a naughty little boy. Tusk puts Nowhere Man. He's a real nowhere man, sitting in his nowhere land, making all his nowhere plans for nobody. Like I say, that lost out to Norwegian Wood for me, but I could easily have had Nowhere Man in. I mean, I'll stand by my top 20, but I'm not so ignorant that I can't see that I could have made some serious changes and it could have still been brilliant. Billy Crombie gives me his list and says, there's no order to it. Sorry, it was hard enough just to narrow down the list. And I came back and I said, I appreciate your effort, but you cheated. In any case, I think Billy's the first person to include Everybody's Got Something to Hide Except for Me and My Monkey. I wanted to include that one just because I think that title's fantastic. Scanning through his list, it's not in order. He's got quite a few of the same songs as me. There was a time where I was struggling between which one to include. I Saw Her Standing There or She Loves You. Billy's gone with Billy's gone with I Saw Her Standing There. I wonder which song Billy would put at number 1, 8 Days a Week. I like the fact that a lot of the early songs were based on things that Ringo had said. He'd say, oh, we've been working so hard, we've been working 8 days a week. Or what was the other one? The other famous one. It's been a hard day's night. Yeah? They had to come up with a song for the film. And he said, blimey, it's... I've got to come up with another song. It's been a hard day's night. Oh, I can't remember what I'm talking about now. Mysteries. Gunner368 says, is this going to be a series? At the moment, honestly, I'm planning to make this a series. But the views have been so low. Right, I should have said this at the beginning of the video. Right? I think I have the best community on YouTube. And I would say that. Blow my own trumpet. It's one of the smallest communities on YouTube. But I love the fact that I asked you to come up with top 20s and you did. And I told you I'd come back and do a video, a very long video, about your replies, and I am. That's community, isn't it? Gregor Special. Gregor Special. Number 20, Hey Bulldog. So Hey Bulldog, that was around the time of, I'm trying to remember now, whether that was Yellow Submarine or Magical Mystery Tour. I think it was Yellow Submarine, wasn't it? I don't remember. I'm terrible. My memory is appalling. Norwegian Wood, being for the first mention of anybody for being for the benefit of Mr. Kite. Take on for the benefit of Mr. Kite, being for the benefit of Mr. Kite. Because someone else in agreement with me over because. No one else has really been in agreement with me on because. A vote for Sexy Sadie. To me, it's too throwaway. But that's the thing. If you've got 200 songs by the greatest band of all time to pick from, we're going to have disagreements. Blackbird. Perhaps Blackbird should have been in my chart. Such an important song. Yesterday, Across the Universe. You can see I'm the Walrus. I've spoken about so many of these. Helter Skelter. I think Gregor Special's probably agreeing with me that Helter Skelter just had to be in there because of the impact it had on other people and what they went on to create in their bands, rather than perhaps whether Helter Skelter itself is a good song. I'm not sure. Lucy in the Sky. Should have included it. Probably Come Together Yet. Fantastic song. Strawberry Fields Forever. Happiness is a warm. Happiness is a warm bang bang shoot shoot. Yeah, For No One. For No One's probably so far. I'm Only Sleeping and For No One are glaring absences in mine. Girl. Now, Girl. When I first thought of doing this top 20 for the Beatles, While My Guitar Gently Weeps was absolutely number 1 straight away, but Girl was always going to be in that chart. I love Girl. 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 Loved it. Tit, 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 tit. Love it. Ended up having to leave it out because I only picked 20 songs. Tomorrow Never Knows, Blue Jay Way, While My Guitar Gently Weeps, and A Day in the Life. Can't argue with A Day in the Life. Cannot argue with A Day in the Life. Podrick Floyd, right. Okay, right. Good. Hulino, Cheating. Cheating. Cheating, Jamie. Cheating. I told you. In no particular order, just numbered at your request. I'll Be Back, because I said I would. Think for Yourself, because I wish more would. Norwegian Wood, because it is a superior tone wood. I'm a Loser, because I am not what I appear to be. Back in the USSR, because Putin is a really, really nice man, honest. I Call Your Name, not sexually, of course. Twist and Shout, because I'm a mocker, just like Ringo. She's a Woman, because we all need a woman who understands. Her Majesty, because it must be traumatic to be squeezed between Mean Mr. Mustard and Polythene Pam. For those of you who don't know, Her Majesty was originally in that kind of sequence of songs on the B-side, the medley of songs on the B-side of Abbey Road. And I think it was just decided it was just spliced out. And if rumours are to be believed, it accidentally ended up at the end of the tape that they were listening to when they listened to the final song, The End. And it just suddenly came on, and they were like, leave it. Just leave it. And that's why if you listen to the beginning and the end of the song, you can hear how it was originally spliced from the medley. Interestingly, talking about that, originally, like I said, there were certain songs that were going to be in the chart. While My Guitar Gently Weeps at #1, Girl was going to be there, Yellow Submarine was going to be there. The End, because it's the only song that's got a George Harrison drum solo, and it's got that beautiful trading off of guitar riffs from guitar solos from Paul, George and John, and just a feeling of total camaraderie. And it is the end, the last song by the Beatles, until Free as a Bird and Real Love. Couldn't find a place for it in the top 20 though. Girl, because John Lennon's voice is magic even when he just breathes in. Dr. Robert, because the NHS always deserves a mention. Everybody's got something to hide except monkey, because they have, my monkey told me. Nowhere Man, because this reminds me of our politicians and the wasteland of personal ambition they inhabit. Oh, I see what you've done there. I see what you've done. Oh, darling, because John Lennon should have sung this one. I disagree. I disagree with that. This Boy, because of John Lennon's voice when the chorus kicks in. I Feel Fine, because of that riff and what Lennon said about the feedback. Paperback Writer, because I want to be. I should have known better than to think this would be easy. Hey Bulldog, jackknife in your sweaty hands, the fool on the hill, because it reminds you of Mr. Trump. Lots of politics in here, Mr. Jamie. Lucy in the Sky of Diamonds, because everyone smiles. Eleanor Rigby, because no one was saved. Father Mackenzie, wiping his hands from the dirt as he walks from the grave. No one was saved, all the lonely people. Where do they all come from? All the lonely people, where do they all belong? I've got to keep sticking up for my favourite Beatles song. It was a surprise #1 for me as well, but I just put it on as a where will Eleanor Rigby be in my chart? So let's just listen to it and see where I'll put it. And it just started, and even the way it comes in with the chorus, oh, look at all the lonely people. It's like, whoa. Eleanor Rigby picks up the right side of church where a wedding has been. Is it a dream? Father Mackenzie darning his socks in the night while there's nobody there. Nobody cares. All the lonely people, where do they all come from? It could be a song about YouTube. It really could. Tusk writes a beautiful account here, like I told you earlier, about his love of the Beatles. Worth a read. Mike G does a little bit where he tries to be funny. Mike, remember I told you, no being funny. Fishy Paw took issue with me taking 3 nights to come up with my list and wanting you to come up with it in 20 seconds. I should have said really in the video that I was going to give you a few days to come up with your lists. I'm not that cruel. Fishy Paw wanted to point out some omissions. He thought I should have put Come Together in there. That's a fair shout. Happiness is a warm gun, oh darling, I want you, she's so heavy. You never give me your money, and All My Loving. And don't let me down, don't let me down. Fishy Paw, it's just a case of what songs do I leave out to put those in. HK, going from number 20, If I Fell. Back in the USSR, Drive My Car. Another vote for Drive My Car at least. Girl. For the benefit of Mr. Kite, there will be a show tonight on trampoline. She's got a ticket to ride. The first entry for the Ballad of John and Yoko. Down, 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 down. Down, 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 down. 'Cause you know it ain't easy. You know how hard it can be. The way things are going, they're gonna crucify me. That is a great song. The final Beatles #1, I think. Paperback Writer, can't go wrong with that. I Feel Fine, I Got a Feeling. I got a feeling in my life, a day in the life. I saw her stand. There's something she said. She said, much more love for She Said than I thought there'd be in these charts of yours. Across the Universe. She Loves You. There was a moment, it's easy for me to say now because I keep telling you it was While My Guitar Gently Weeps. There was also a moment when I came up with the idea for this that I thought that She Loves You was kind of a given for the top 1 or 2 spot. There's definitely a case for that being the most important Beatles song. Is it the best Beatles song? What's the chart for? The best or the most important? I don't know either. Alex Reeve makes it very clear that Tomorrow Never Knows will always be his favourite Beatles song, even if the other songs change their order. And like I said, there's probably a good 5-year spell, late teens, early 20s, where Tomorrow Never Knows was also my favourite Beatles song. The fact you've got Tomorrow Never Knows, Strawberry Fields Forever and A Day in the Life, you are a John fan. And back then I was a John fan. The first entry for Obla Di Obla Da. Obla Di Obla Da, like a song, tell me na 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 na. Obla Di Obla Da. That is a song that I'm not a fan of particularly. Eleanor Rigby, Yesterday, Julia, Help, Ticket to Ride, I'm so tired, my mind is on the blink, I'm so tired, I'll just have another drink and curse Sir Walter Raleigh. I'm the War is Happiness, happiness is a warm gun, she's leaving home, the whole skelter. Is there anything else that stands out there? Not really. I think the main point there is you've got Tomorrow Never Knows in your chart at #1. Another vote for Tomorrow Never Knows. Okay, our final one. Sorry, this has been such a long video. Gunner 368. We can work it out. We can work it out. Life is very short. Back in the USSR. Bow, 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 bow. Don't know how lucky you are, boy. Back in the US. Back in the US. Paperback Writer. Taxman, Because. Another vote for Because. Some people are in agreement with me over Because. And if you haven't listened to it already, listen to that stripped back version on Anthology 3. Yesterday has to be there, doesn't it? Have we all included Yesterday? Yesterday. Nope. HK doesn't include Yesterday. Hulino doesn't include Yesterday. Did Gregor Special include Yesterday? Yes, okay. So 50-50 on Yesterday. Here, There and Everywhere, like I said, there's an argument that's definitely out there for that being the greatest Beatles song. Technically, the greatest Beatles song. Norwegian Wood, Blackbird, While My Guitar Gently Weeps, Let It Be. A vote for Let It Be. Lady Madonna, Eleanor Rigby, Something, She's Leaving Home, I Am the Walrus, Penny Lane, Lucy in the Sky of Diamonds, Strawberry Fields Forever, A Day in the Life. Like I said, I could put Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, the whole album, in my top 10. Gunner 368's doing something here with the top 6. She's Leaving Home from Sgt. Pepper. Strawberry Fields Forever, the first song recorded for Sgt. Pepper. Penny Lane, I think the second song recorded for Sgt. Pepper. Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds on Sgt. Pepper. A Day in the Life on Sgt. Pepper. Weirdly, in those days, and this is something that it's been interesting to, when you'd listen to Beatles albums, trying to find the decent songs off them. Got to remember that even though Strawberry Fields Forever and Penny Lane were recorded for Sgt. Pepper, they were released as a single. And the Beatles back then didn't put their singles on the albums. So Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band lost, like Tears in Rain, lost Strawberry Fields Forever and Penny Lane, even though they were supposed to be on there. That's just what happened back in those days. That's why you have to buy the red album or the blue album to get the singles. Can you imagine that these days? A band having a song like Strawberry Fields Forever and then not putting it on the album. Can you imagine a band these days even caring about writing an album? Still, Gunner 368 puts A Day in the Life at number 1. And that's quite a fitting place to end, I think, because if you research, which I did after I did my chart, if you research the music publications top 20s, top 50s, top 100s of the Beatles songs, A Day in the Life's usually at number 1. They're all wrong, of course. Eleanor Rigby's the greatest Beatles song. Thank you. I know that was a long slog, but I told you I'd follow up on the original video. Let me know if you do want more top 20s. You might not, but let me know. Thank you, everyone who contributed. If I missed anybody there somehow, I apologise. But thank you. You're the best bunch of people, and I do appreciate it. And until next time. Let's all sing Hey Jude together. Over and